All right, well, welcome everyone. This is a presentation about NotebookLM for teaching and learning, and my name is Simon Majewski. I am very happy to answer your questions today, but also maybe even learn from you what it is that you do with NotebookLM, because this tool's been around for a little bit, and certainly as many positive things we've heard about NotebookLM, most recently there have been many concerns as well. So hopefully we'll be able to cover many of these topics. Just to get us started, I will tell you what NotebookLM is in general. Then I have a few slides of a presentation, and then we'll move on to a demo portion where I will show you how I am using NotebookLM. In this presentation, we are pitching kind of the use of NotebookLM to be a class resource. So what if we had a textbook that students could interact with, ask questions of, perhaps have a quick video created based on a specific chapter? What if that was possible instead of having just a textbook that we would read? So that's the basic premise. And right away, I want to narrow down the scope by saying that textbooks are not all equal to each other. So specifically, I am talking about an OER textbook, or open educational resource, which very quickly clarifies some of the legal issues that otherwise might be involved if you have a textbook under a certain license, or maybe textbook that the library handles. These legal difficulties can be tricky, and certainly for a specific textbook, it might be good to ask specifically the distributor, your salesperson, or whoever the success manager is, because the licenses that we have are not all equal. With that being said, our first approach here again is that we have the legal right to use the material, such as with an OER textbook, or perhaps we're using our own notes from our own class. And then we're going to use something these resources for. All right, so NotebookLM happens to be a tool made by Google. But Google didn't just imagine this tool on their own. In fact, Steven Johnson, who is an author of many popular books, such as Where Good Ideas Come From, and he led this project. So the idea was, right when, some years ago now, right when AI was coming to fore, how can we use AI for writing? Because Steven Johnson is an author, and so he created this notebook to help authors organize their thoughts, to help them understand topics from different perspectives. Which is why on the NotebookLM website, that's their main website here, the key statement is understand anything. So not read everything, not necessarily talk about everything, but try to understand things, which is where NotebookLM actually shines, because if we have material which needs to be read, such as an OER book, maybe in PDF format, certainly we can use a computer to read it to us, so it becomes more of an audio piece. But oftentimes, we might be lacking pictures, or just the depth of pictures that we might need on a certain topic. A video would be nice, and maybe even listening to other people talk about the subject would be nice. And that's where NotebookLM really shines. So as you look through the website here, first they're suggesting you can upload sources. And again, just a note to instructors that when you upload sources, you can't upload just anything, right? So if you have documents that contain personally identifiable information about students, you should not upload that to websites which you do not have a FERPA agreement with. At this point, for many schools, NotebookLM is a third party. There is not an enterprise agreement. But schools that are within the Google Accelerator program, they might have an agreement where FERPA information can be uploaded safely without legal and ethical difficulties. All right, moving forward, instant insights. Well, NotebookLM is a tool that allows you to create a study guide or a briefing document out of the content that you uploaded. Or it can create some quizzes for you, create a timeline. It applies to various domains. I teach computer science, so I will try to be as non-geeky as possible. But when I think about timelines and things like that, it doesn't necessarily apply to my courses. However, if you teach history or there's a need to develop, maybe if I was teaching history of Python, right? Maybe there would be need for timelines. All right, see the source, not just the answer. What this is talking about is that NotebookLM will give you an answer, but also it'll tell you where the answer came from. That's relatively unique in terms of AI chatbots that oftentimes are going to tell you what they know, and often if they are not sure, they'll just make up the best thing that they can come up with. And NotebookLM will tell you specifically where the answer came from. Also, a NotebookLM allows you to create an audio artifact out of an OER textbook. So you can specify chapter 1, and then you can provide a little prompt that says, this is a first-year college class. Please explain this specific topic based on chapter 1. And you'd be amazed at what it can do. In fact, for a really nice exercise, upload your resume, which you have copyright to do. So upload your resume to NotebookLM and then tell it to create this audio overview, or otherwise they call it podcast. And when you hear other people talk about your resume, it actually is a very, very interesting experience. Okay, so NotebookLM, it's a study tool. It can help us organize our thoughts, again, created for writers, and spark new ideas. Now, I want us to think about two main uses of NotebookLM. One is as a helper to you as an instructor. So you will create instructional resources. Maybe you want to understand a new topic in a different way, and you produce a video, you produce an audio podcast for yourself, and maybe some for your students. But there's also another use of NotebookLM, and that is students can use it for self-study. So consider students who are for whom English is a second language, or maybe consider students who are more of visual learners. Now, we know that learning styles are somewhat not as huge as we thought of some years ago, but certainly when you have an OER textbook with just text in it, getting some illustrations connected helps, especially if there are some analytics involved, some data. And so you will find that students can create infographics for themselves, and they don't have to distribute them to anyone, but they can create those for themselves to understand the specific topic better. All right, people rave about NotebookLM on the NotebookLM website. Now that is kind of reasonable, right? But there are people who have concerns about NotebookLM, and if you have some, I very much would love to talk about those as well. All right, and so obviously NotebookLM is part of a business process. So Google is a for-profit corporation, and they give us and students certain things for free, and then you have to pay for other things. With NotebookLM, most things are free at a reasonable level. So you can generate so many videos, you can generate so many podcasts for free. And then if you would like to get the FERPA protection, if you would like to get an enterprise agreement where you don't have to look over your shoulder every time you upload a document, that's what the organization would pay for in terms of an enterprise agreement. Some great questions in the section here at the bottom. So I'm just going to post this in our chat here, but that's just the main website for NotebookLM. Now let's switch to slides, because we're educators. There's not a webinar without slides, right? We just don't do that. So NotebookLM, how can we create an interactive course textbook? Right away, I want to share with you that whether you're using NotebookLM or any other technology to create a textbook, you are going to deal with very similar legal concerns. right? There will be legal concerns and there will be ethical concerns as well. Because if you're simply using a Word document to put content there and you're going to save it as a PDF and then you say, I have my own textbook, that's fine. You can then make it even an OER where you share the textbook with others. That's fine as well. However, what content you put in that Word document or what content you feed into NotebookLM, there are nuances to it. There are legal nuances and there are ethical nuances. A legal one would be the book that I am following here. Maybe there's a table of contents I'm following. That book that I am basing my new book on, do I have a license to do that, right? If you are using some other OER and now you're creating your own version of OER, you might want to dig in a little bit. What did the author use as a source? Because hardly ever do you sit down and you write out the textbook. There's going to be some themes from another book. And so those are the legal issues. The ethical issues would be if you're going to put content from another textbook into an OER or into NotebookLM, are you going then to maybe deny the benefits of the research and the authors of the original textbook? Are you going to deny them income basically now by creating a free resource and students are not buying that other textbook? So that's a valid ethical issue when we create instructional content in general. However, this presentation is not all about legal issues. However, it's fair to say that whenever we create instructional content with NotebookLM or with another tool, we would want to make sure that our sources are cleared for that use. So some of the questions that I was asking myself when I was reviewing NotebookLM really had to do with how we learn, and I include myself in that altogether. So when I read a book, right, how much of the cognitive process is spent actually just reading, so decoding the content? How much of it do I memorize? And then how much of it I actually understand? And as I read something the second time, I always find that I find new details that are new. So the more you read something, you discover new things. So is the reading equal learning, right? That's an interesting question for consideration. Or if we're lecturing to students, is just talking, right? Is that teaching? And if students are listening to a lecture, how much of it is actually maybe memorizing or how much of it is actually learning? And on memorization itself, when someone memorizes something from our lecture or a textbook, do they have an insight, some critical thinking involved of how that fits in the rest of the world, right? Or are they going to remember it 6 months from now? These are questions that we've asked for a long time. Or when students are considering cheating, right? Why are they breaking those rules in our class? Maybe there's some instructional design adjustment that can be done. In students who are not cheating, but just going with the motions of the class and are not actually gaining any insights, right? Is that a concern? And so for many of these questions, I think NotebookLM can fill a gap. I think that NotebookLM can be a tool that at least helps us to have a new solution or a new support. All right, so NotebookLM is different from many of the chatbots that you might be familiar with. Google has its own chatbot, it's called Gemini, and NotebookLM is not the same as Gemini. The way NotebookLM is different is that it will only process and answer from the sources that you are uploading. So imagine a folder where you put your OER textbook, your notes from class, maybe your PDF files that you've created, and then also PowerPoint documents or PowerPoint presentations. And in that folder is kind of the knowledge of the course. If you upload this into NotebookLM and then you start asking it questions, it's going to go to those sources instead of going to its pre-trained data like most chatbots do, right? So this also means that the rate of hallucinations in NotebookLM is much smaller. And often the hallucinations can be spotted because it will give you an answer and then not provide the actual source. Okay, so that's how it helps with organizing ideas because you can go back to the source where an answer came from. And so technology-wise, this is called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. And so if you're looking for a new word about AI, that would be a great one for today. So what can you upload to NotebookLM? Well, you can upload documents of various formats. You can upload media, so you can upload audio files. You can upload pictures. You can also upload or point towards a Google Drive. Again, if you are willing to share Google Drive with a NotebookLM, that's your choice. It doesn't automatically gain that access. But maybe you have resources that are already organized. And then, of course, you can put in URLs to YouTube videos or otherwise. And you can do this thing called deep research. And I will show you how that works in a moment. But the difference is that most chatbots, when you ask them a question, today they're going to go through a quick algorithm of how difficult is this question and what's the cheapest way for me to respond. Right? And the cheapest way for me to respond often will mean which LLM or which AI brain can I use? Maybe the one called Fast, or maybe the one that's called Pro, or maybe the one that's extended thinking. And so this prioritization happens because when you are using a chatbot for free, the idea is to demo the technology to you, not to give you kind of all the resources associated. When you pay $20 a month for a tool, the first question will be, how much can we give you of value without breaking the bank, right? And so there's again where this decision will be made, maybe to use the right match, right? We're not going to say cheapest. The right match between how difficult the question is and how smart the LLM that you are now granted access to will be. Okay, so moving forward, the true magic of NotebookLM is that it is multimodal. Multimodal means that it can create audio resource. Again, if you upload your resume and you create an audio overview or a podcast, it's an amazing experience. I very much recommend it. Then interactive mode, where you can create a quiz in NotebookLM and it'll wait for you to answer questions. And so again, for self-study for students, that's a very useful tool. But NotebookLM can also create videos. Now, let's pause here for a second because videos are an important resource, but there are some concerns. Number one, when you are generating a video in NotebookLM, you can view that video on the web page. You can share that video and the entire notebook with students, or you can download the MP4. It's just a format for videos. You can download it, and then by using tools like Camtasia, TechSmith Camtasia, which by the way is headquartered near Lansing, Michigan, or other editing tools, you can edit that MP4, you can cut things out, you can replace the slides that the video used, or you can add captions to it. You can add audio descriptions as required by Title II if you're going to use it as an instructional tool. So videos can be edited. If students are producing their own videos, it's up to them how they generate them, what assistive technology they'll be using along with the video. Mind map, of course, it's a tool that is used in K-12 quite often, but on a specific topic, I have seen mind maps in Google LM that are actually quite useful. So this can be generated as well. You can generate all of them and then just pick the ones you want to keep. Right, that's kind of the best way. It's kind of like shopping, right? You look at things and then you decide that you'll spend a little bit of time or money on a specific one. All right, flashcards is another type of a piece, and now we are into the assessment options. Because when we talk about NotebookLM being a self-study tool, or when we talk about it being instructional content tool, in education we don't do anything until we know how to assess it. right? Because otherwise it's like a tree that falls somewhere in the woods, or something happens without being able to really show evidence for it. So students can create their own flashcards. You can create quiz questions, and then you can take those quiz questions and put them into an LMS, learning management system, and use them. Just a quick note on the overall, again, copyright issues. If you are going to use quiz questions, or if you are going to use any of the content, let me start with the fact that I'm not a lawyer, so I am not sharing legal advice. I'm just sharing concerns of a fellow faculty on this. If you are going to use these resources, just be ready to explain, or you can always on a quiz on your syllabi make notes. It's fair to say that students expect to know how much of their course is built with AI. It's not a legal requirement. It's not even a college requirement, but ethically it makes sense that in a syllabi we would say some of the content for the course, maybe the quizzes, were created with assistance of AI. And it's important to note that the legal issues are still being clarified. However, in most cases, when AI creates a quiz question, this is thought of as a transformative work, which means that it falls into, in AI's example, it falls into public domain. Unless you go into this quiz question and manipulate it and you transform it into something else, and then you have the copyright on it. So it's just how content that jumps out of AI systems really works. Study guides, reports, infographics, slide decks. Now, these are here under assessment because students can turn them in as artifacts for homework or as an assessment. So imagine that a student is processing a chapter, and there is some cause and effect connectivity there you're teaching, some critical thinking, and you want the student to create an infographic to illustrate a specific concept. Well, the student, of course, has then the option of using NotebookLM and a custom prompt where they will tell the system what they want to see, and then they can recreate that infographic multiple times until they feel like the infographic they created matches your rubric, and then they submit it to you for grading. So just options for using the system along with assessment. All right, some educator-specific features. We have content curation, which means that we choose what content goes in. We then can generate artifacts. We can delete the artifacts we do not want. And then we curate the notebook this way. And then later we can share that notebook with students as a link in the course. Most of the time, sharing into your course would mean that you mark that notebook publicly available. You can specify names of students, but then they have to have Google accounts and authenticate through Google. That can be tricky, especially if a school is not connected through a workspace product. So in practice, marking them as public. So by the time you're ready to share a notebook, you want to make sure that, again, you're not sharing things like a copyrighted textbook or otherwise resources that can be somewhat problematic. All right. Multiple instructors can collaborate on a notebook if they share a class. Notebook is also now reaching out into OER places like OpenStax, where there's a certain level of curation of the content done. Because as we mentioned, NotebookLM allows you to collect sources and then tie the answers to sources. Well, if the sources are not accurate, then we're not really making progress. So OpenStax helps to collect curated sources. All right, and then the idea of a simple tool in NotebookLM is that you can talk to your sources. So now you have an OER textbook, maybe about history of music, and you want to find out, well, which one of the great composers was deaf, right? And so you could have Googled it, but instead, when you put it into a question in the chat section of NotebookLM, if you have an answer in one of your sources, it'll tell you where the answer came from, and therefore you can read up more on how maybe that researcher knew Hopefully it's a peer-reviewed system so that it has its own citations there as well. But being able to talk to your textbook helps to meet the gaps, maybe between chapters. Maybe student read chapter 1 well, not so much chapter 2, and now they're in chapter 3. They will have questions, right? The chapter 2 covered, and now they can catch up on it. All right, and for anyone who was wondering about what's the difference between the paid version of NotebookLM versus the free one, again, you can create fewer sources with a free one. In order for NotebookLM to be a paid version, you would upgrade your Google Gemini to Pro license. And the Gemini Pro license gives you access to the Pro version of a notebook. All right. And so the last slide here before we move to a demo really shows that this is an iterative process. So we can upload sources many times, we can delete them, we can upload them, we can then edit if needed. Then we can generate multiple prompts. So the chat area is going to allow us to go through a variety of questions. Then we can create the various assessments. Again, we pick the ones, we keep the ones we want. We can create the multimodal systems like audio and video, and then we decide to what extent we want to share it. All right, so with this being the case, we'll move into our section of the webinar that will be a demo. And before we jump into a demo, I want to mention that there is an event coming up called the AI Literacy Day. And this is coming very soon, March 27th. And there's a website for this event called ailiteracy.org. Let me put that into our chat. Well, let's see what happens here. Well, I tell you what, I'll put that later on in our post webinar notes because for some reason my my copy and paste broke. Here we talk about AI and I can't copy and paste. I tell you, it's always things that we least expect. And connected with AI Literacy Day, I want to share with you a guidebook that we produced as part of work with faculty, really helping to determine what are the quick steps to think in a positive way with AI and how to, for example, turn AI into a cognitive triage where some things make sense to do in AI, some do not. So what would be the principles there? Or how to turn AI into a cognitive gym where instead of just getting an answer, we can ask AI to quiz us as we were 10 years old, or maybe quiz us at a college level, or quiz us at some commercial level where the CIO really hates the idea and talk with me from this perspective. So by increasing the cognitive pressure or the cognitive load, we can develop our thinking skills just as if we went to a gym. So this is a resource like that, and it's hosted on Zenodo, which is an OER network, and the logo for it is a robot that helps a brain to stretch. So recommend the resource. You can Google it, being how my chat didn't work all that well. NotebookLM is a very good example of some of the principles that the guidebook shares. What you see right now is a NotebookLM that already is in some development. If you've ever been watching a cooking show, there's a time when they say, and we prepared that ahead of time, right? Because we didn't want you to wait for the cooking to be done. Okay, so if we were to go 2 steps before this, if you navigate to notebooklm.google.com, you will see an area where you can create a new notebook. And then when you say, I want a new notebook, you get this kind of empty notebook with a prompt. And we'll come back to this momentarily. But after you do a little cooking, what you'll end up with are sources on the left. There are 3 panes. If your window is smaller, then you will have these panes hiding. You'll have to reopen them. But there is a window pane with sources. Then there is a middle pane with the chat itself, where you can talk to the textbook. And then there is a studio pane that has all the magic in it. And so we'll get to that magic. And the studio pane is basically how NotebookLM is different from all the other tools. Going back to sources. First of all, this particular notebook is my tool for learning more about a training that is being offered at the college for mental health first aid. And what this is a way for instructors to learn more about how to help students who might be in a distress mentally. How to find resources, how to connect students to these resources, but most of all, how to recognize maybe symptoms of distress. And of course, the fact that instructors are not professionals in mental health. Most instructors are not. Therefore, we don't diagnose, we do not provide medical help. However, we can be that first aid. And so a beautiful program, I recommend it to you. So first line of note here is that I uploaded Word documents, which were my notes from the training. Now, as these are my notes, and I didn't, copy and paste things. In fact, during the training, the manual was locked up. It basically was protected through the internal system. But it would be wrong on my part to maybe take a manual from a paid training and then upload it to NotebookLM, and then maybe even next step sharing it with others, right? Because this basically would hit into a commercial income of the company that provides the training, infringe of maybe copyright difficulties, so a whole can of worms. But because these are my notes, I felt like this was a fine way to add. Because these are my notes, they don't necessarily go as deep, right? So there may be a note that says, please help students as well as you can. Well, that's a very simple note. So instead, when this window came up, I basically put in here a prompt that said, mental health first aid for college instructors. And I actually selected this option for deep research. Now, because I am a Gemini Pro subscriber, I have the option for deep research. Some of you might only have the fast research. It will depend on the licensing there. And then what NotebookLM did is, instead of me having to upload sources, it basically used Google's resources, which is why Google is a company that has sustainable AI, because they own the big searches, they own kind of the universe of data. They went into their own search, which they do legally, and they often pay licenses for Reddit, so they can also search Reddit, again legally. And Google found these additional sources, about 42 of them, right? And as I reviewed these sources, and I can navigate to the websites where they came from, these sources had information about mental health first aid posted on other websites, posted on in public, but basically I still can here select and remove or delete things that I want or do not want. So I uploaded 4 of my own, and then I'm just going to go ahead and hit import. And so notice that NotebookLM is now processing all these different sources. Because the sources have checkboxes, I can uncheck all and then select just single source where I want to chat just this one source, right? So it's not like you have to talk to all the 50 sources I have, but you can be very specific. So I will start really easy by saying, what does MHFA stand for? And so this is the part, again, where I can have a custom conversation with my sources, with my book. It's taking a little bit longer than usually, just because we have some of the new sources that were added. But here it is. What does it stand for? Well, it stands for mental health first aid. Very simple answer. Where did you find this answer? Well, here is the source, source number 2, and then it provides even additional information about the algae process that is included as part of the process. So that's where you can get your own answers, but then students can also, again, fit some of the gaps. All right, so moving on, let's go to the part that does the magic. I could simply click on audio overview and it would start generating an overview. Because it takes time to generate overview, I pre-made one that I will demonstrate. I can then also select any of the other items, and I can click on as many as needed, or as many as I want to try. I certainly appreciate the slide deck. It is producing infographics internally. It has usually multiple of them, and it can help you to create a new PowerPoint if you're interested in doing that. If you're going to distribute any of these resources directly to students, you will want to consider accessibility in Title II. Okay, so what does an infographic look like? So I basically clicked on infographic, and actually what I clicked is this little edit button. So if you just click on the infographic itself, it'll just go running with all the defaults. But if you click any of those, what does it look like? It's a pencil, right? When you click on the pencil, you get to narrow down what this infographic will be about. So you can say, create a book cover, right? Something completely different, and something that it would not do by default. And I can make this detailed, concise. I can also choose the style of the infographic. So once you create any of these resources, you can then look what was the custom prompt that was issued. Well, I asked to create a picture about algae. So what is algae? Now, algae was already explained in the chat here earlier on, but the picture that was produced is this right here. Now notice that there's an artistic take on this, and you can explain this. We can say create a dark background, or one that I like to use is create a professor's whiteboard, and then it actually will look like you wrote that stuff on the board. So it's just kind of a artistic approach. And so it explains what algae is. It says it's an approach, listen, give reassurance. Compare, please, this artifact to the answer in the chat, right? The answer in the chat, I'm going to go back there. It is in text, and it said exactly the same thing in terms of the content. But when you look at infographic, it is a different part of your brain that kicks in the processing. So students can create their own infographics, or you can create pictures out of here. If you're going to use them, alternative text, of course, is very important so that the infographic is explained. Now, let's see what happens when you click on the audio overview, and for just a few seconds, we'll listen to what was produced on this topic for the overview.
Welcome to today's deep dive. And I actually want to start by welcoming you specifically.
Yes, you.
Who's a good listener. You are. You're a very good dog. Specifically, a highly observant, deeply empathetic golden retriever.
The absolute best listener.
Right. We know you are naturally attuned to your human's moods. You just, you understand your pack's dynamics intuitively, and you always want to help when someone in your pack is distressed.
Because as a golden retriever, your emotional intuition is essentially, it's your superpower.
Exactly.
You don't need a manual to know when your human is having a bad day. You just know. But today, we are going to look at a stack of material that unpacks how your humans are trying to learn that exact same superpower.
Yeah, we've got quite a stack today. We have an essentials guide, a workplace.
All right, so let's explain the weirdness. What happened here? Well, if I was to look at my custom prompt, right? So again, what did I tell the system to do? I will go into the custom prompt, and my prompt was this. The audience are golden retrievers. Speak about human mental health like you're explaining it to a golden retriever. Instructors want to be mental health first aiders to students, but let's present to them the content from a new perspective by explaining it to golden retrievers. All right. You got to try this prompt on other things like AI, NotebookLM. Explain it to me like I'm a golden retriever in whatever AI system you're using. It's really interesting how the different AI systems take it. But what I'm saying is that you can customize your audio podcast to things that are going to match your requirement. And, if a student generates their own audio, maybe they're not good at reading, right? So maybe they are going to specify that in there, or maybe they say, explain to me like I'm 12 years old. Now, the guidebook I mentioned earlier encourages us to be humble when we talk to AI. First of all, that's the kind of humble that doesn't get back at you because nobody knows about it, right? So you can say to AI, explain to me like I'm 12 years old. And that's actually healthy because oftentimes you learn some basics and you learn even vocabulary that will help you explain it to students, right? So playing with kind of professional humility along with AI is one of the principles that we talk about in the guidebook. But that's the audio overview. Let's do one more thing, and that is we're going to look at the video overview. And so the video overview, again, let's take a quick look at the one that I prepared earlier.
If you're an instructor, a TA, or really anyone in a teaching role, you're on the front lines of student well-being. But let's be honest, how do you really know when a student is struggling? And more importantly, what's your role in that critical moment? Well, in this explainer, we are going to break it all down. So let's start with a number that really sets the stage, 1 in 5. That's how many American adults, on average, experience a mental health challenge in any given year.
All right, so I would like to draw your attention to a couple of things. In that, when we say video, this is not a video as in full motion.
Notice when a student just stops.
Right, this video is really a presentation
Look like.
that is narrated. What that means is that if you downloaded this MP4, like I mentioned before, and use Camtasia, you can replace any of the pictures with something that you've created, or maybe it's an infographic that you have, or a slide from your slide deck. And then, of course, captioning and audio descriptions you can add as needed. But the videos are really helpful, especially to students who create them for themselves in order to understand topics that otherwise just did not click before, right? All right, so Suzanne, thank you for the question. Does NotebookLM provide a transcript of the audio overview? So similar to the videos, the resource here
Communications handbook,
can be downloaded. So you can download an MP3 and then either in Camtasia or you can upload it to YouTube, make it a private video, right? Don't post it to the world, private video, and it'll create captions for you. Then you can download it and then you can have a transcript. Does that help, Suzanne? Okay, yeah. So when it comes to NotebookLM, it is optimized for the user. It wasn't necessarily created to make end goal kind of end result instructional resources. It was made for the user to customize them, and if you require or you enjoy having captions, then there's another step that you would follow to get those captions working for you. But the basic content is generated per user instructions here. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. I do want to just demonstrate very quickly that the sources for working with NotebookLM can be diverse, but that the easiest way for students perhaps is, I want to learn, help me learn about Title 2 captioning, audio descriptions, and transcripts, right? And so when you do the search, NotebookLM does the step where it will try to collect your sources. Now, again, the backend for this is Google Search, and Google Search here is connected to OpenStax. It knows that when you are looking for things, it needs to use websites that are going to be credible. Not everything happens automatically, so when the search comes back, you still can preview which ones you want to find. But I'm just saying that for a student who is looking to learn something about something new and abstract, that's one way where we are kind of leveling the the field, as an instructor, you can create a notebook, you can select the sources, you can take the student to kind of level 2 of notebook where the sources are more reliable and now they're chatting with things that are reliable. Well, I want to thank you for your attention to our demo part of the presentation. And I just love demos because whenever I think things will be quick, they never are quick, which is why I prepared some of those resources ahead of time. But I tell you what, now is a good time to ask any questions that you're thinking about. So if there's anything that you're interested in, anything that maybe caught your attention, please feel free to ask. Happy to engage in a conversation.